Cześć, witajcie, ale o drogę mnie nie pytajcie. Moi drodzy, jak wiecie, nie jesteśmy jedynymi ludźmi, którzy próbują odnaleźć własną tożsamość. Bo na tej ziemi jest wielu ludzi, którzy rozumieją, że ten świat nie jest tym, czym powiedziano nam, że jest, prawda? Mieliśmy na kanale już różne ciekawe osobowości i jestem pewien, że lubicie wszelkiego rodzaju takie różne rozkminy, które próbują nadać jakiś sens temu światu. No i w tym odcinku też mam dla Was ciekawą osobę, człowieka, którego poglądy są bardzo podobne do przemyśleń, przepraszam, gościa, którego poznaliście w tym tutaj filmie. Pamiętacie? No i słuchałem tego wywiadu jakiś czas temu. Nie mogę Wam puścić tutaj całości, bo to zbyt długie jak na możliwości mojego internetu. Mam za słabego neta. Przewalanie tego na YouTube by trwało 2 dni. Jeśli Was to zaciekawi, to sobie kiedyś tam zajrzycie do czada na kanał. No, tak to jest. Błądzimy jak ślepcy po omacku i próbujemy się czegoś choć trochę rozeznać w tym wszystkim, nie? Wydaje mi się, że nam, ludziom, wyrządzono naprawdę wielką krzywdę i że to jeszcze nie jest koniec naszego upodlenia. A Wy jak myślicie? Trzeba zrobić wszystko, co w naszej mocy, aby uzyskać jakąkolwiek możliwość wydostania się z tego zaklętego kręgu i wrócić do naszego prawdziwego domu, który, jak wierzę, gdzieś tam jest i to całkiem blisko. No, mam taką nadzieję, choć podobno nadzieja matką głupich. No ale trzeba sobie jakoś poprawiać samopoczucie i wierzyć w nieśmiertelną wieczność, w krainę nieograniczonych możliwości. No to dzięki i do zobaczenia wkrótce. Trzymajcie się zdrowo i szczęśliwie, na ile to oczywiście możliwe w obecnej globalnej sytuacji. Pozdrawiam ciepło.
Welcome to Open Your Reality, ladies and gentlemen. I am so glad to have Nick Hinton back on the show. It's been 2 years that I've waited for Nick, and he's graced us with his appearance once again. If you don't know who Nick Hinton is, he's a philosopher, author, wandering nomad, and explorer of the deep unknown. Welcome back to the show, Nick.
Happy to be back, man. Thanks for having me. And it's hard to think back over the past 2 years. I mean, I think for just about everyone it is. Seems like ever since COVID happened, like things have just kind of sped up and almost like we're in like a liminal zone. It feels like time's moving differently. But yeah, I mean, it's been pretty crazy. I think everything started going really, really nutso in the world like right after our podcast, and I decided to just, how supposedly the age of Aquarius is upon us, and the age of Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn. So it would make sense that all the Saturn symbolism is becoming more prevalent. And I also go into detail about how I feel like the symbolism of the age of Aquarius is like it deals with water and electricity and stuff. So this is going to be the age of technology and reality becoming more wavy. And I feel like that's why we're hearing about all this different quantum stuff. And I also feel like it's going to result in just more and more paranormal phenomenon and things just getting weirder and weirder as the veil continues to, unlift.
Do you think the Mandela effect is part of that?
Oh yeah. I talk about that in there a lot. And in that book, I talk about how the Mandela effect seems to be caused by time travel experiments at CERN and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But also there are hints of a different theory, which I believe this theory more, and I touch on it in the second book, but I haven't gone into full detail yet. Part of me thinks that the whole CERN time travel stuff could just be a psyop, and that really what they're doing is they're experimenting with psychotronic weapons on the masses and messing with people's memories through electromagnetic fields, because we know that that's actually possible. We don't know that time travel is necessarily possible yet. So it might just be some kind of I don't know, almost like a ritual, and the conspiracy is just to make people I guess, more fearful of what they're capable of, you know, making us think that they're able to manipulate reality. But in a sense, they are, because, you know, reality is what takes place in the skull. So if they're changing our perceptions, technically there are other timelines, but I don't know if it's so literal as how I thought about it before, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. I mean, you're one of the first to ever say something. I've never heard that theory before, or that hypothesis or postulation or estimate. It's very interesting. So they're using psychotronics to change our mind. Like you said, reality is really formulated in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
David Icke's been talking about that for years. But why is it that some people, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but why is it that some people remember a particular Mandela effect one way and then other people remember it in other ways? For example, I was talking to somebody recently, you know, the Mandela effect, mirror, mirror on the wall, and it's never been like that. Now it's magic mirror on the wall.
Right, right.
Well, this person, she remembers it magic mirror on the wall. And I was surprised by that because I thought everybody would remember it mirror, mirror on the wall. So why is it that some people remember a Mandela effect one way and other people remember it another?
Well, I mean, I've never thought about it, honestly, but I mean, I think it could be that they are only doing this to certain groups of individuals, probably those that are more into conspiracy and more, you know, seeking the truth oriented. Maybe they're purposely targeting those people, and maybe they're doing that simply to reinforce the narrative of the Mandela effect. And, you know, people can take that any which way. They can either, I think they're trying to build a narrative where people think that they're shifting back and forth between dimensions, or, you know, from a different world or something like that, make them feel special or different, when really it could be something more nefarious than that.
Do you believe that there are, you know, parallel timelines going on, and that maybe, well, there's so many different ways I could take this, Nick, but go ahead, answer that question, please.
I mean, like I said, I used to believe that. I used to believe in the whole quantum physics, multiverse theory, but I don't think it makes that big of a difference if you're believing that memories are a different timeline. Like I said, reality is what takes place in the skull. So if you remember something a different way, then technically that is a different timeline. But I don't know if those are actually places we can go visit physically. I think it's more of something that you visit mentally. It's like a consciousness thing.
So for you, you're not sure if they're using psychotronics to change our memories or if it's actual time travel. Is that what you're saying? It could be one or the other, but lately you've been leaning towards the psychotronic theory?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. But CERN definitely plays into this in one way or another.
Right. Well, CERN, for all we know, could be just a giant stage prop. Like, you know, the same way a lot of people don't believe we've actually been to space and that those rockets are just flying into the ocean. Those are essentially stage props. Well, part of me wonders if CERN is the same thing. And, you know, because we have no idea how that thing works. Like, I've never heard anyone, or, you know, the average layperson explain to me what all those freaking numbers on the chalkboard mean. Like, no one can explain to me how quantum physics works or why it makes sense. I mean, they explain it in a way that seems that it makes sense. But I think, you know, part of me thinks that's how magic works, is just the power of belief. So if we're all watching, you know, if they have all the conspiracy theorists' attention looking at CERN, and we all believe that it's going to change the timeline or open up a portal, maybe we're actually giving it the power to do so.
But some people would counter that and say, well, I mean, we have all this technology, very advanced technology, and it's all based on, you know, subatomic particle science, you know, quantum science.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I would argue that all of our technology is technically based off of magic. So number one, you know, the definition of magic is just to utilize the forces of nature and bend them to your will for desired effect. Well, that's essentially what technology is doing. You know, we're bending the force of electricity to talk to each other on our phones and send text messages and whatever. But when you look at the history of technology, you know, binary code itself, Leibowitz, he based it off the I Ching, which was a Chinese divination tool to communicate with spirits.
So are you saying that, like, all technology is fundamentally based in magic? And
Yeah. And it sounds silly or maybe mundane, but I think everything we do on a daily basis is kind of participating in magic. Our whole social reality is based on belief and, constructs that we have invented, like money and time and things like that. But yeah, I mean, even driving a car, you're bending the forces of nature. You're using the oil and burning it in the engine and blah, blah, and you're going from point A to point B. I think that magic has just become so normalized that we don't even realize that we're doing it all the time, if that makes sense.
No, it does in a way to me. Have you ever heard of Matt McKinley's channel, Quantum of Conscience? Have you ever watched it?
No, I never have. Or maybe I have. This is like the avatar of the channel is like red. I think it's like red and orange or something.
No, he always does his videos with a webcam, and he's a bald guy about my age, and he talks about the reality always being false.
Okay. Well,
but anyway,
I don't know that I'm familiar. Anyways, keep going. Sorry.
But his famous saying is that that the reality is always reality is always it's a false reality, basically.
Yeah.
And it can't be a real reality. It's a made up reality. And one of the things he says is, for example, like a lot of these companies that should have gone out of business when COVID happened, they remained in business. And he believes that money can just be created like almost out of the ether.
Yeah, well, that's what they do. They just print it.
Right. Well, they do that too. They do that too. So, but it's very interesting. Have you ever seen like demon magic? Have you ever seen I've seen magic tricks where people put something in a bottle and they pull it out, like all these tricks that, now I know magic is based on illusion, a lot of it, but some of these tricks, David Blaine was one of the first with the street magic back in the 90s, but some of these guys I've seen today on YouTube, it looks scary real. And do you think that's actual demon magic?
Yeah, I kind of do. I mean, some of these things, there's just no explanation, like, swallowing swords or forcing your hand through a fish tank. Like, I've seen all those things. And yeah, I think, Manly P. Hall talked about it. He said that some of the original magicians were making deals with elementals and familiar spirits in order to, do things that seemed impossible. And I think that's exactly what phones are. I mean, if you were to be dropped off in a forest somewhere, how long would it take you until you're able to take sticks and water and rocks and turn it into a cell phone?
It might be a while for me. I don't know the technicalities of creating a cell phone. I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched the show Naked and Afraid, but those people have trouble starting fire.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that, I think, the fact that science is just an extension of alchemy, and, the alchemists were essentially experimenting with elementals and different things like that. I think that even modern day scientists, or at least somewhere down the line, there were people channeling different entities from another dimension or something and getting the forbidden knowledge and the directions in order to create some of these things. And, even the alien ufology people would say that, a lot of this technology is just reverse engineered from interdimensional beings.
I was just going to go there. That's exactly where I was going to go next. But I know you know about Jack Parsons. I've heard you talk about him on some other podcasts, but it's a fascinating story, right? For people that don't know how NASA started, because it has to do with magic, right? I mean, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So Jack Parsons was a student of Aleister Crowley, and also, the guy who helped co-found JPL Laboratories, which is Jet Propulsion Laboratory at NASA, but also it's jokingly called Jack Parsons Laboratory. And they even they celebrate his birthday every year on Halloween, I think. But yeah, so Jack Parsons, he created the rocket fuel that took us to the moon, if you believe that. And but supposedly he was also involved in, well, not even supposedly, I mean, there's documents and records that show he had this place called the Parsonage where he was teaching people, Crowleyan magic and holding Gnostic masses and all that type of thing. And sorry, I keep saying supposedly because I want to be careful, but no, this is real. In the desert in I think 1946 or 1947, sometime around there, he was doing rituals in the desert with L. Ron Hubbard in order to summon this being named Babylon, who was this mother goddess that would basically help usher in the new aeon, or the new age, which is an age of basically total debauchery, like the breakdown of societal norms and all the current power structures in place and hierarchies and things like that. Which, yeah, is interesting because, you know, not too long after the ritual took place, there was a huge wave of UFO sightings. You know, the Roswell crash happened, and yeah, and then, you know, we see what's happening to the world today. It seems like that's only picking up and accelerating. You know, the UFOs are in the news, society's crumbling, and yeah, I think maybe we'll see more signs of this Babylon goddess thing coming around. Honestly, I think she shows herself in the form of Marian apparitions, but that's a whole different story.